Hi everyone, welcome back. So GFG problem of the day today is maximum difference. So we are given an integer array ARR of integers. The task is to find the maximum absolute difference between the nearest left smaller element and the nearest right smaller element of every element in the array ARR. If for any component of the array the nearest smaller element doesn't exist, then we have to consider it as 0. So this is what we have to do. Let us see the test case. So for 2 there is no left smaller, so left smaller is 0. For 1 there is no left smaller, so left smaller is again 0. For 8 the left smaller is 1, so 1 is the next. Similar way we find the right smaller array, and then the maximum absolute difference is 1 of both the arrays. So this question is very interesting as this gives us the concept. How shall we make the left smaller and the right smaller array? So these sort of questions where we have to find the previous smaller element or the next smaller element. In this both we have to do previous smaller also we have to find for every element and the next smaller also. So these questions are always done using stack. So anytime you get next greater, next smaller, previous greater, previous smaller, use stack in those questions. Why stack works in this we will see in the explanation of this. But the trick to keep in mind is for previous is smaller, next is smaller, we have to use stack. Now how stack will work we shall see in this test case. So if the stack is empty means there is no previous smaller in the stack, we will keep the previous smaller elements for each in array element. How we shall do that? For every current element, all the elements in the stack that are greater than them, we shall remove them. So the remaining element will be smaller than the current element. So that shall be the previous smaller, right? So that is the same thing we will do in the stack. So if the stack is empty, there is no previous smaller, so left smaller will be 0. Now we have to add 2. So we have added 2 to our stack because this shall be the current element. Now for 4 in the stack we have 2. So there is nothing greater than 4. There is nothing greater than 4 because we have to remove all the elements that are greater than the current element because we want the previous smaller. So we have removed, and after that 2 is remaining in the stack, so 2 shall be the previous smaller for 4, so we have got 2. Now we shall add 4 to the stack. Now after that we are on 8, the current element is 8. Now anything greater than 8 in the stack? No. So what is the previous smaller? Previous smaller is 4. So again the 4 comes. For similar way for 7, similar way we shall add 8 to our stack at 8. Now when we come on 7, we have to find the previous smaller, but the stack peak is greater than our current element, so we have to remove that because we do not want that, we want the previous smaller, so we have removed 8. Now after 8 what is the previous smaller? 7. Oh, 4. So 4 shall be the answer. Now when we come on 7, the stack peak is 7, so we have to remove that because it is not smaller, so we remove that. Now 4 is again on the peak, so 4 is our left smaller. Now we have added 7 to our stack. For 9, is there anything greater? No. What is on the peak? 7 in the stack. So 7 is our previous smaller. So this is how we use stack. Because when we are removing all the greater elements from the stack, according to our comparing with our current element becomes the previous smaller. Our current element becomes the previous smaller. We have removed all the greater elements. Means for all the next values, our current value shall be serve as the smaller one. So this is how we find out the previous smaller or the next smaller. For next smaller, we just traverse the array from last to first. So let's see in code how we shall do this. I hope you guys would have got some idea of the logic why we used stack. So what we have to do, we have to get a left smaller array means the previous smaller array and the next smaller array. We shall create a stack. We have created a stack. Now we put a loop on the array. What is our first step? Our first step is to remove all the greater elements from the stack than the current element. Now this means that we have to remove all the greater elements because we want the previous smaller. So till our stack is not empty and our stack.peak means our stack top is greater than current element, we will just remove. So after this we will be having only elements smaller than our current element. So means we will be having previous smaller. Now if our stack is empty means we do not have any previous smaller, so our left smaller shall be 0. Otherwise it will be equal to the stack peak. Now after that our current element will become the peak because it shall serve as the smaller for the next elements. So this was the previous smaller case. Now again we have to create a stack. Now we have to find out the next smaller element. So for that the logic will remain the same, just we will traverse the array from last to first. So we have done the same, the loop moves from last to first. The logic is the same. We put the values on right smaller. So we have got left smaller and the right smaller after these two loops. Now we just have to find the maximum absolute difference. So we have kept the difference as minimum value, and after that we put a loop and calculate max of difference or the absolute difference between LSI and RSI. So this gives us the maximum absolute difference between right smaller and the left smaller. So I hope you guys would have got the logic. So this is how we use stack for such questions where we need the previous smaller, current smaller, previous greater, or the current greater. Just the conditions change. For greater, these conditions shall change, and for previous and current, just the traversal method changes. So this was a very interesting question. I hope you guys would have got the logic. Thanks for watching the video. Have fun. Bye.